3 cosmonauts, 1 dying spacecraft, and a decision that would leave someone stranded on a planet no human was ever meant to reach. That's where Star City's finale leaves us, and by the time the credits roll, almost every burning question gets answered. But it also plants a few new seeds for a potential second season. Today we're breaking down exactly what happened in that last episode, who lived, who didn't, and where the story could go from here. Did Valia survive? Going into the finale, we already knew Venera hadn't been destroyed and was limping its way back toward Earth. What we didn't know was whether Valia, Sasha, and Lakshmi would actually make it out alive. Here's the problem they're facing. The crew manages to put out the fire on board, but the depressurization from the disaster knocked their ship off course. Without enough fuel left to correct it, they're now drifting toward the sun instead of home. Their only shot at fixing the trajectory is the bathysphere, a small landing pod meant to be dropped onto Venus. Its thrusters are built to fire automatically once released, but if the crew wants to use it early to nudge the ship back on track, somebody has to physically get inside and trigger it by hand. And here's the catch. Once that pod detaches, there's no going back. It can't be redocked. Valia volunteers. He knows there's no real future waiting for him on Earth anyway. Even if by some miracle he made it home to his wife Tanya, their relationship would never be allowed to continue given everything that's happened. And after all the danger he's dragged Sasha and Lakshmi into, he sees this as the one thing he can still do to make it right. Sasha fights him on it. He doesn't want to lose his friend, but Valia's mind is made up. Before sealing himself in, he asks Sasha for one final favor: track down Tanya, make sure she's safe, and tell her he never stopped loving her. The plan works. Venera's course is corrected, and the ship heads back toward Earth. Valia, meanwhile, knows exactly what's coming. As the pod descends toward the surface of Venus, he looks out the window one last time and smiles. It's a quiet, almost peaceful moment. Rather than dying in a burning spacecraft or rotting in a prison cell back home, Valia gets to become the first human being to lay eyes on Venus, even if only for a few minutes, before the planet's crushing pressure collapses the pod entirely. Given that the bathysphere doesn't survive the landing, it's worth wondering just how much usable data, if any, actually makes it back to the chief designer. Why does Sasha give himself up? For Sasha and Lakshmi, the flight home is really just the start of a new problem. Because they defied Lyudmila's orders to help Valia, the Soviet state now brands them as traitors, meaning a normal landing back on Soviet soil basically guarantees their arrest. The chief designer tries to help, quietly rerouting their landing toward Finland instead. But the plan gets discovered, and Lyudmila launches a missile specifically to force their capsule back onto a Soviet-controlled path. It works. The moment Sasha realizes where they've touched down, he knows their only move is to run for the Finnish border before anyone catches up to them. It's not a clean escape. Lyudmila's men open fire, hitting Lakshmi in the leg, but Sasha refuses to stop moving. Stopping means capture, and capture means it's over. Then, just as they near the border, Anastasia shows up out of nowhere, driving a truck she borrowed from a local family. She deliberately parks it between Sasha and the approaching soldiers, buying him and Lakshmi the seconds they need to cross into Finland. Then she steps out and surrenders herself. Sasha gets Lakshmi across safely, but he doesn't follow. Watching his wife get taken by armed guards, he simply can't bring himself to walk away and leave her behind. He chooses to stay, even knowing what it likely means for him. What's next for Sasha and Anastasia? Right now, things look genuinely uncertain for the two of them. Anastasia is arguably the most recognizable woman in the entire Soviet Union, which probably works in her favor. It's hard to imagine the state making an example out of someone that visible, especially given her relationship with Lyudmila. More likely, she ends up under constant surveillance and permanently grounded from any future spaceflight, rather than facing real punishment. Sasha's situation feels shakier. He knowingly went against direct orders to protect a man the state considered a traitor, and that kind of defiance rarely goes unanswered. Prison time or long-term house arrest both feel plausible. On top of that, he's going to have to somehow convince Lyudmila that Valia really did die on Venus, and that he isn't hiding anything else from her, which won't be an easy sell. As for Lakshmi, she's safely across the border in Finland, and nothing is technically stopping her from telling the world everything that happened, except that her husband is still back in Soviet territory, which gives the state serious leverage over her silence. It's also possible the Soviets try to strike some kind of quiet diplomatic deal with Finland to get her handed back before she talks. And honestly, given that the Soviet Union never publicly admitted to sending a crewed mission to Venus in the first place, let alone one that had an American operative aboard, there's a strong chance the whole thing simply gets buried. If any version of the story ever comes out officially, expect it to be a heavily rewritten, flattering account that conveniently leaves Valia out of it entirely. Once the dust settles, Sasha's next priority is honoring his promise to his best friend, finding out what really happened to Tanya. The catch is that he and Anastasia will almost certainly be watched closely from here on out, which means their search could end up leading the KGB straight to her. Where is Tanya, and is she safe? By the finale, we learn Tanya made it out and is now living quietly in Paris. Irina clearly still thinks about her old friend. There's a small, telling moment where her daughter plays a piano tune Tanya once taught her, and it visibly gets to Irina. For Tanya's part, she seems to have settled into her new life and blended in well. But that peace looks fragile. In the final moments of the episode, we see a woman trailing her through the streets, someone we've seen before, working on Lyudmila's behalf, who'd previously approached Anastasia in Paris about defecting. It's not necessarily confirmation that Lyudmila knows exactly where Tanya is, but it strongly suggests Soviet operatives abroad have been told to watch for her, and this woman may have simply recognized her by chance. So who actually got her out? It doesn't look like American intelligence was involved. If it had been, she'd likely already be in the US. That leaves Irina as the most probable answer. After Tanya fled her apartment, Irina may have tracked her down herself and helped arrange a fast border crossing, without waiting on the American contact who was originally supposed to help. A second season would likely dig into exactly how that escape happened, and what comes next for her. If she's ever caught, would she give up Irina's involvement? Given that we already know Irina eventually rises to lead Roscosmos, that outcome seems unlikely. It's also possible Tanya reconnects with her American contact down the line and finally reaches the US for good. And there's still the open question of Sasha. Right now, he has no idea whether Tanya is even alive, and finding a safe way to learn the truth could become a major thread going forward. Does Lyudmila reclaim control of Star City? In the finale, Lyudmila makes her case to Moscow that chief designer Petrovsky simply isn't up to the job, and with Irina's help, she's the one who correctly predicts the Finland escape attempt and manages to force the capsule back onto Soviet ground. Even though Lakshmi still gets away, Sasha's capture is entirely her doing, giving the state a source who can confirm what actually happened aboard Venera. After a mission this chaotic, it's hard to see Petrovsky staying in his position much longer. Lyudmila has effectively proven again that she's still the one who gets results, even after being publicly sidelined by Moscow. So going into a second season, expect her influence to grow, Petrovsky likely gets reassigned, and Star City probably gets a new chief designer. The real question is whether that replacement is another hardline military type like Petrovsky, or more of a brilliant engineer in the mold of someone like Korolev. After a disaster of this scale, Moscow may want someone who can enforce control just as much as design rockets. Could Lyudmila end up taking the role herself? It's not out of the question, and there's an interesting tension brewing between her and Irina. If Irina really is protecting Tanya, that puts her on a direct collision course with her own mentor. Irina has already shown she's sharper and more capable than people give her credit for, and if that mentor-protege relationship eventually breaks down, Lyudmila might not be as untouchable as she thinks. That's the finale broken down, but there's clearly a lot of unfinished business heading into a possible season 2. Tanya's fate, Sasha and Anastasia's future, and whatever's brewing between Lyudmila and Irina all feel like they're just getting started. What do you think happens next? Drop your theories in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit subscribe for more show explainers just like this one.